Hey guys, in this video I'm going to talk about why I stopped drinking coffee. Now this isn't going to be a video where I tell you that you need to stop and it's super bad for you and you should never drink coffee again. But it's going to be a video where I share with you the reasons why I stopped and how beneficial it has been to my life. I'm going to share with you the short-term expectations, what the long-term expectations are, and at the same time I'm also going to give you some tips if you are someone who has been thinking about cutting back on your caffeine or you want to quit drinking caffeine or coffee completely. I'm going to share with you some ways that you can go about it, either by doing a staggered process or by quitting cold turkey. Now before we get into all that, I just want to let you know that this is going to be kind of a serious video because drinking coffee or drinking caffeine almost becomes part of who you are as a person. It makes a lot of the things that you do so much more enjoyable, and it gives you that focus to do your work that it becomes really hard to detach yourself from caffeine once you've been drinking it for quite a long time. So I'm going to get into the video, but again, if you are someone who has been thinking about stopping or you're thinking about cutting back in your caffeine intake, then hopefully you stick around for the rest of this video because I'm hoping that my experience from when I started to how I've quit, what it's been like for me, what are the things that I experienced along the way, and perhaps if you're in this situation yourself and you might not know or may not even have thought that caffeine might be the cause of all of it, then stick around and see if I can help you in some way. Alright guys, so I'm going to go back to the very start when I first started drinking coffee. Now, the first cup of coffee I had where I truly had and truly enjoyed it was back when I was in college in Colorado. So my first 2 years of college, I wasn't a very focused student. I was very distracted, and even in high school, I was much more focused on playing sports, on being athletic, rather than focusing on my studies. And the same was true for when I got to college. The first couple of years, I was really distracted by everything around me. I was a very average student, not great. And then by my junior year, I was the first time I started drinking coffee. And of course it was from Starbucks. I used to get myself a smaller, a medium-sized iced latte. When I would go to class, I felt so much more engaged in the lecture. I started focusing a bit more. I started enjoying learning. And so I started to become reliant on coffee before I would go to class or before I would study for exams. Whereas recently, when I've gotten off of it, things have started to really change, and it's given me some time to reflect and think about whether drinking coffee this entire time has been a mistake or has it been truly beneficial for me in a productive sense. So after I graduated from college, I got to the point where I was drinking maybe 2 cups of coffee a day, but they were relatively small to medium-sized cups. And as the years go by, I realized that I was increasing my intake more and more just to get that same fix. I really loved the taste of the coffee, the smell of the coffee. My coffee consumption just continued to grow and grow, that I started drinking more and more. I would have 1 cup in the morning, I would have another cup in the later part of the morning, I would have another cup in the afternoon, either by myself or with clients, just pick up a coffee on the way. Unknowingly, I was adding more and more caffeine into my life. I was kind of loving it in the moment that I never ever thought I would stop drinking coffee. If you asked me at that point, hey man, you're drinking too much coffee, I think you need to cut back, I would have probably not even entertained the thought of it. But then I started getting to a point where I started to feel like my energy levels were nowhere as close to the people around me who were not consuming as much caffeine. I started to think about it myself, whether a lot of the things that I was feeling, inconsistent energy levels, lots of ups and downs throughout the day, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of crankiness here and there, lashing out at people from time to time. I sort of identified in my life that coffee was kind of the root cause of all of that. I was enjoying the high and the focus from coffee too much. That morning cup of coffee gave me 3 to 4 hours of really productive work before I need to have another cup, but the cups of coffee later in the day did not lead to an equally productive time as the morning hours. But in reality, when I was waking up at 5:30 or 6 a.m., I felt like a morning person because I loved waking up at that time. I would have a cup of coffee, I would hit the gym, and all of that was really tied to me looking forward to getting that morning kick from the coffee. And then obviously you get the boost of feel-good energy when you're doing something that's really productive or good for you. And I've always been someone who's really enjoyed going to the gym. So when I combined the caffeine together with the workout, that was something that was really, really hard for me to stop. Now, the reason why I think you should cut down or cut back if you're someone who suffers from anxiety is because coffee ramps up your adrenaline system. It gets your heart racing, gets your heart pumping, it increases your cortisol, it puts you in that fight or flight state. And that's the reason why you can be so focused, but at the same time, it does increase your heart rate and also can increase the amount of anxiety that you feel. Now, I just want to share with you what you can expect in the short term after you stop drinking coffee or caffeine. So the first week was generally the hardest week I've experienced. I lost all motivation to do anything. I just felt insanely tired. I couldn't gather the energy naturally from my body to allow me to do any of the things that I enjoyed doing or to do any work in general. The second and third week, it starts to get a bit better, but you're not completely free of caffeine yet. Your body takes a bit of time to completely get off of it. Quitting caffeine takes anywhere from 2 weeks to a month to be completely free of the effects of caffeine and also for you to see the benefits of it. So if you're gonna try quitting caffeine, then I suggest doing it for at least 2 weeks and stick it out for a month before you decide that you want to have coffee or tea again. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is my sleep quality. I used to wake up at 5:30 or 6. I would hit the gym, so I'd be there by 6:30. I would have a cup of coffee right before I work out. And then I'd have my second cup somewhere around 9:30 or 10 when I'm in the office. And then my next cup would be between the hours of 2 to 4 p.m. As you can imagine, my body and my brain is on caffeine all day long, from first thing in the morning until I go to bed at night. When I quit caffeine, I started to notice that I wasn't able to survive on just 6 to 7 hours of sleep anymore. I also realized that I wasn't exactly a morning person. I thought I was a morning person because for me, the most productive hours of my day were the morning, and then the rest of the day I didn't feel that productive. I felt like I was doing 70% of the quality of work that I would do in the morning hours. But then when I got off caffeine, by the third or fourth week, when I really started to feel like myself again, my creativity came back, my natural energy started to come back. I was not feeling reliant on any sort of external energy other than the foods that I was eating. So at that time, I started to realize that I'm not actually a morning person. I can actually be equally productive all day long. And this is one of the biggest positive, long-lasting effects that this is starting to have on my life, which is I can do the same quality, 100% effort in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. Even though I'm more tired in the evening hours, if somebody was to send me a work email and I need to get to work, I don't feel the stress or pressure that I used to feel from it before. I feel very, very stable. Although I don't have the highs that I used to get from coffee, I have a very stable energy throughout the day that makes me feel really, really good. And I never feel like I'm crashing. There are those moments in the day where you will get a little bit tired, but it's very easy to pick yourself out of that and then get to work. At the same time, I'm also getting a lot more sleep than normal, which I feel is the healthy amount of sleep for my body, and it's really what my body needs. Previously, the 6 to 7 hours of sleep that I was getting was masked by the caffeine from the coffee, and it made me feel like, yeah, I don't need that much sleep. 6 to 7 hours is perfectly fine for me. But when I stopped drinking coffee, I realized that my body actually needs the 8 hours of sleep, and then I can go about my day tackling any task that I need to do with 100% effort and focus. The very last and most important long-term effect of quitting caffeine for me has been that I've started to feel like my old self again. I feel more in touch with the person that I am. I don't feel like I'm reliant on outside sources to give me my daily boost of energy. I don't feel like I'm reliant on other things. I feel like I can completely function the way that my body is meant to function, and also focus on work the way that I'm supposed to naturally. And when everything in your body is so naturally in sync without any external source, you actually start to feel like a different person than you were when you were drinking caffeine. That person you were when you were drinking so many cups of coffee is going to be a different person than who you are when you stop drinking caffeine. You will notice it significantly, and I promise you that the version without caffeine is going to be so much better for you that I strongly urge you to consider cutting back on the amount of caffeine that you're drinking. I will even go as far as to say that your productivity without caffeine will be so much higher than your productivity with caffeine. Now, if you disagree with me on that, that's completely fine. You don't have to quit if you need your coffee to function and you're not ready to stop at any point right now, you don't have to stop. If you're a college student who needs to get by and study and focus and get good grades, completely fine, drink coffee. The way I'm gonna do it from now on is I might have a coffee once a month, or I'll have tea from time to time to give me that boost and focus. I'm not saying that I'm quitting completely. What I'm saying is this period of going caffeine free has really taught me things about who I am as a person and how disruptive caffeine can be to a person's life. And I never want to go through this again, that I'm not willing to put myself into a position where I'm having multiple cups of coffee a day. Because when I think about that, when I think about the amount of coffee that I was having, even at that point when the most I drank was 3 cups of coffee a day, when I think about that, I start to feel a little bit stressed right now about the whole thing, because I don't ever want to be at that point again. And I don't want to have to go through quitting drinking caffeine like that again. I'm so much happier now. I don't fight and argue with people unnecessarily. I speak my mind. I don't have anxiety about speaking up to people. I'm very, very direct with people now. I'm able to just be myself. So to sum up this video, I'm going to tell you how I ended up reducing my coffee intake and then quitting caffeine completely. So what I did was I bought an espresso machine thinking that I'm going to make 2 cups of coffee and save money on it because it was $1 a pod instead of going out to Starbucks and spending $5 or $6 on a cup of coffee. And then I noticed that one of the capsules actually gave me just the right amount of caffeine, where I would only need to have 3 cups a day to get all my work done and be extremely productive throughout the entire day. So now that I knew that I had a very measured amount of caffeine, because each of those Nespresso pods have the same amount of coffee grind and the caffeine kick is going to be the same every time. So I used that as a way to cut down from 3 shots a day to 2 shots a day, and then I was eventually down to 1 shot a day. And then I added in a cup of tea in the afternoon instead of a cup of coffee, or sometimes I would do that in rotation where I would have tea in the morning and the 1 shot of coffee in the afternoon. And all of this was just trial and error just to figure out what worked for my body. And then I started drinking half a shot of coffee. I know it sounds ridiculous. You're probably thinking at this point, bro, just quit completely, just quit cold turkey. But this is how hooked on coffee I was, that I didn't even want to give up having that half shot with a little bit of milk or something. And then eventually I completely dropped coffee and I started having 2 cups of tea a day. And then I had 1 cup of tea a day. Then I was down to none. That whole process from 3 shots of espresso to no caffeine took me about a month. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that the first week of quitting caffeine was the hardest that I've had to deal with in my life, but that effects came from quitting caffeine cold turkey. Anyway, guys, this video has taken too long. I think it's going to be a really long video. Most of you are not going to stick around till the end, but I hope that by me sharing my experience with quitting and how I'm in a much, much better place now as a person, and with work and with everything going on in my life, with my energy levels, I hope that this video helps to push you in the direction that you want to go. And if it has no influence or no impact on you whatsoever, that's completely fine too. I was that person before. I never even wanted to entertain the thought about having to stop drinking coffee or caffeine, or even switching from coffee to tea was not something I wanted to do because I didn't enjoy drinking tea as much as I do coffee. But I can assure you that if you were to try this, the effects that will happen in your life will be so monumental that you may never go back to the same amount of coffee that you were drinking before. Hope that you can support my channel by subscribing or clicking like on this video or sharing this video to other people who you think drink caffeine or coffee excessively, and hopefully they can get something out of it. So thank you very much and stick around for the next video.